Okay, so today we're going to talk about insulation station, which is just a clever name for how we're going to be talking about different ways that you can insulate your house to save some money, make it more energy efficient, and overall up the value of your house if you should decide to sell someday. So, how is energy transferred? What is insulation, and what are different ways that we use our insulation? So the first thing that I want to talk about is heat transfer. So heat is transferred in three ways: radiation, conduction, and convection. Convection is when heat travels by movement of liquid or gas, so boiling water. Conduction is heat energy transferred by direct contact, as if you were to touch the handle, you would feel the heat from that. And then radiation is when heat travels through the air, feeling the warmth of the fire, but not actually touching it. So that would be radiation. So those are the three ways that we see the actual heat transfer. And so those are just kind of important to understand as building blocks, as if I were doing this for my high school students to kind of bring in some of their learning standards. But also, it's nice to understand that as we go on and learn more about what actually insulation is. So, insulation is a material or substance that is used to stop heat, electricity, or sound from going into or out of something. I think a lot of times we think about insulation when we are really cold in the winter, because we think if we had better insulation, we would be able to stay warmer for longer and have lower heating bills, which is definitely awesome, especially a few years ago when the price of gas went really high, and that was really difficult if you have LP at your house instead of electricity. Electricity also can be very costly if you are utilizing a lot of energy in order to heat your home. So we can also use it in things such as for sound to insulate more, so that in case you can hear the hammering in the background, we don't have very good insulation in our cinder block lab. So that's a problem too, that eventually, we can work with insulation for sound as well. So inefficiency, obviously the main reason probably you're interested, other than having to be here, for PD. You're probably interested in knowing how can you save money, do things, do it yourself so you don't have to hire it out. And I'm going to try to go through a few things that are going to be really pertinent to you in your own home or apartment, whatever it might be, things that you can do to save a little bit of money and, like I said, up the value of your home. I think a lot of people talk about energy transfer, like I said earlier, about losing heat in your home, but also in the summer, we can lose a lot of our cool air too. So I like to point that out a lot with my high school students, because they don't really always think about the hot and the cold aspect of it. The insulation really is beneficial to both of those areas. So, one thing that I want to say is this: I like this picture a lot because it's showing you the warmth outside, creating a warmer space in the building, and it also just talks about the air exchange. So, with temperature, basically, if it's inside of a home and the temperature is air conditioned inside the home, it's wanting to reach equilibrium with the temperature that's outside the home. So it will try to escape in any way possible, the airflow will, in order to reach an equilibrium to where it's kind of staying constant, more than having something very cold and something very hot. If they are close together, they want to reach the same temperature, which is like why, for instance, if you are making boiled eggs, a lot can do with temperature with those, as far as like maybe making it easier to peel, stopping the cooking. If you just boiled eggs, to have hard boiled eggs, you want to, when you take them off the stove, immediately put them under cool water so that they stop cooking. What's going to happen when you put it under cold water and you have hot eggs is it's going to allow them to reach an equilibrium that is cooler somewhere in the middle between there, and then we put them in the fridge, and that's that. So, R value is something that's very important as far as vocabulary goes when we're talking insulation. Um, Obviously, costs can change a little bit, but that really what it's going to be is when we have something like this roll in insulation, or even when we're doing blown in, but roll in insulation is more what I want you to think of for R value. And that basically is all insulation is doing is slowing down the flow of those air molecules that are trying to either be cooler or warmer to reach their kind of equilibrium, okay? So the higher the R value, that means the higher it is to resist the flow between the two. So we're trying to slow it down, and that's why some people think, well, if I want to have the best insulation, I'm just going to go get, the most expensive insulation and, whatever. I'll just put double layers in there. But if this is not spread out, allowing that air to be slowed down by this insulation, like as in if you pack it too tightly and you're not spreading it out, you're actually being detrimental to slowing down uh, the flow of air. So having it this, the reason we kind of keep it nice and fluffy is because that actually slows it down more than if you had something very compact. Okay. This is a really good picture. I'm going to talk a little bit, I think, on the next couple slides. I'll show you a little bit about blown in insulation. And this is a nice picture to think of now. This is what you can actually tell in some homes if you're going to purchase a home, you know, eventually with your kids, or if you are, with non-brick exterior siding. A lot of times when they are insulating homes, you know, from before the 50s or whatever, they had maybe more likely to have plaster. It doesn't have very good insulation in the home at all. So they might come out from the exterior of the home, take off one piece of the siding here, and then you'll see little holes, and they actually just plug those holes with caps if they can't find the same siding, which obviously would be really difficult to match something in the fade and color from a house that was built in the 50s. So you'll actually see holes and small caps as we go through. I've got another picture I'll show you later on to kind of help show you that. A big area that we lose a lot of our heat or energy is in our pipes and ducts. So I've got a few different pictures I want to explain here. Obviously, this is a really easy do-it-yourself job. If you've got a ranch, single-story home with a basement, you've got good access to all of your ductwork. In a perfect world, that's how it would all be, but most people either have a crawl space or they have multiple stories, creating bulkheads or basically areas that it's really difficult for you to get into and insulate. So what I recommend to people is just wherever you can easily get to it, insulate it. Because even if it's at a few of your connections, like for instance this ductwork, which usually we would see more of a rigid ductwork where this is expandable. Rigid is more looking like this that you would see. Insulating there, because as we take one piece, connect it to another piece, wherever that connection is, right at your HVAC system, your heating or air conditioning system, or as we go through, we make a turn, there's an elbow, whatever the piece is, all of those little connections are areas that that air is going to escape, that hot air or the cool air that you're pushing through the home. And whenever it escapes into places like your crawl space or in between the walls, it's not getting into the rooms where you are feeling the actual temperature difference. So using duct tape, actual, you know, it's actually a very shiny metal, very similar to the metallic color that you see here. Taping all of those seams, that's huge. And then also getting some sort of wrap insulation is going to be really helpful as well for those ducts. Up here, we just see kind of like another facet of that. Even for your dryer, insulating your dryer vent as well can kind of stop if you have, for instance, in the summer, you don't want to be releasing a lot of heat and moisture into your house. Because of air conditioning, we're trying to get that moisture out of your home to make it feel cooler. So even just your ductwork for your air conditioning, or excuse me, your dryer can be helpful. Pipes, same thing. If you want to have hot water, if you're kind of far away from the hot water heater, you have issues losing that energy. Every time you start to feel a little bit warmer water and you crank up the heat as you're taking a shower or washing dishes or whatever it might be, all of the loss of heat that you have from non-insulated pipes causes issues because you crank up more heat, therefore using your hot water heater more, making it run more. Or for some of you, you have turned the hot water heater, the actual temperature that it will sit at, higher to have hotter water on demand. Which means a hot water heater, how it works is basically you're filling this entire cylinder with water and it heats it to a certain temperature that you can set. All of them, well, I should say within the past 5 years or so that have been manufactured, 5-10 years, probably have an economy mode. And that's where it's a recommended setting from the manufacturer to keep the warmest water at the most economical temperature. So I recommend trying that. A lot of people, it might not get quite hot enough for you. If you're a person who just really likes really, really long and really hot showers, then that might not work. But at least turning that down slightly means you're using less energy throughout the day while you're not even home, and it's keeping it warm for you. That's using a lot of energy from your house, especially in electric or gas, but definitely electric. I want to switch over to and just talk a little bit about the hot water heater. Hot water heaters are not a very expensive thing that you can replace in your home for a nice upgrade. It's nice when you're walking through a home looking to buy that you see some new utilities, and if you're going to upgrade one, I really recommend the hot water heater as well as your actual appliances. because your old appliances, refrigerators, dishwashers, all that are going to be energy hogs as well. And that could save you, upwards of $30 to $50 a month, depending on how old those appliances are. Your hot water heaters, obviously the newer ones become a little bit more efficient. We're looking around a $300 to $500 upgrade for that if you do it yourself. If you have it done, probably be looking closer to, I'd say, $600 or $800, depending on how much water, how large of a tank you decide to have. There's also near instant ones that get more into the thousands range, but are very, very high efficiency. So different things that you can think about. Another thing that you can do that I recommend to people, if you are losing hot water quickly in the shower and you've got a relatively new or a decent hot water heater, a lot of people are actually quick to throw them away. But there's actually two elements that are relatively easily able to be replaced, one at the top typically and one at the bottom. You can take those elements out. Not very expensive to go to Menards or wherever you decide to go for your materials needs, and you can replace those. That can help a little bit with efficiency. Obviously, getting those replaced. If you are only using one, your water is going to cool down much faster because it's not able to stay warm all day waiting for you to come home. As well as that is if you actually take your hand on your hot water heater, feel around the outsides of it. If you feel any warmth at all, anything other than what you would typically think of about basement temperature or crawl space temperature or wherever yours is located outside of the metal, it might feel a little cooler, which is great. But if you feel any warmth at all, that means you've got either a slow leak or a very inefficient hot water heater. But typically that would mean you have some sort of slow leak in the actual tank. And these have a steel manufactured tube on the inside, heavy insulation in between the tubes. And so if you feel that, that means the insulation has gotten wet. If the insulation gets wet, it's no longer insulating and it's a very inefficient hot water heater at that point. So just some things that you guys can check on. Attic insulation, huge place to be able to save some money with. If you've just got an empty attic, or even if you've got like a second floor where this is already drywalled and stuff, or you're planning on, definitely take the time, spend the money to insulate it well, because you will get that money back so quickly from your savings and your energy bill. So this is an example of loose blown in insulation, as well as I have a picture again of the rollout that you can do. Typically, probably in the last 10 years or so, this is what we see a little bit more often, even actually quite a bit older than that as well, that you're going to see more of the blown in insulation in the attic area, especially if it's not really going to be used for storage a whole lot. But it is nice to have now where they will do a blown in foam that looks, oh, pardon me, I'm going to go back to that. It looks a little bit more, it dries kind of like in a little bit stiffer, and it would look like this is an example as well. I showed you earlier their exterior where they will take holes in the exterior and blow it in. This is also how they would do on an older home. We can tell the date of this home probably around the 50s, 60s maybe, if I had to guess. Maybe actually older now that I see the radiators. But so that means it probably doesn't have great insulation in it. Could be plaster walls. Looks like drywall though. But anyway, if you see how they go to insulate this, you'll see the loose blown in insulation, but also this you can kind of see where it becomes a little bit rigid here. That's actually where it almost looks liquid and it's expanding, okay? And so that is really nice to do if you want to on the rafters of your attic, just because it right through here you're losing all that energy as that heat pounds down on your roof. It's warming all of this up. Also, just as we know with materials, expansion and contraction can be a really negative thing for a lot of your lumber as well. So insulating that better can be really beneficial. I also wanted to show you, I guess I'll show you that in a second. Let's see, current slide. So with window insulation, I would say, of course, I've been saying everything is a great thing to do, but this is probably the best bang for your buck as far as energy efficiency in your house, replacing your windows. If you go to look on a house on the market that has replaced windows, that is a pretty large expense that they have taken the time to replace correctly. Can save you so much. Even cheaper windows that you can buy are so much more energy efficient than our older windows. So right here they've got kind of a cut up window that you can see what I'm talking about. Almost all windows that you can buy are no longer single pane windows, which is what we see in my next picture. I'll show that to you in houses probably built around the 40s, 50s, 60s. They're going to be in that single pane area. What this does when we have the double here is we're actually trapping dead air. dead air is the best insulator, as it is incredibly difficult since it has captured air for air to transfer through. So you would be looking at incredibly high energy savings if your house was built pre-60s, 70s. If you were looking to replace windows, this would probably be a good time to do it. And just looking at that energy savings, the comfort that you will feel from your home as you're able to have your blinds open. You can also close your blinds, not letting as much sun come in. If you have older windows, that can also make just a little bit more efficient curtains or blinds that can block that out while you're not home during the day. But these nice new windows really are allowing us to have better efficiency within our homes. This is a picture of my house in college. We replaced it's 2 stories, but we only replaced the first story windows as there were only 2 small ones upstairs. This is the newer window on the left side. On the right side, we're going to see these this kind of older style window, and I wanted to show you this in particular because this is single pane. They over time have gotten incredibly loose, like they can hold themselves up, because down here, this is actually how we see a common day window. They look like this because these are old rope windows, meaning this is held up by, you can actually see a rope on the interior. You can see it, and it's attached to a lead weight that looks similar to this. These are in the side there, and that's where we actually get that cavity so that the weight drops down as you open the window, and then it can hold itself. A lot of times the rope has eventually like disintegrated, or somehow the weight has torn off, and that's when you see people having to put, like, you know, cleaning bottle or whatever it is in their window to make sure that their window stays open and doesn't come crashing down. But these are what the old ones looked like. Incredibly inefficient. A big way you can test windows, because some people will put custom wood windows back in, very expensive, but if they want to keep the character of the home or something, a way that you can test this as you're walking through your house is actually just put your finger on the interior, push on the bottom areas of the corner, and if you feel any movement back and forth, you've got a pretty inefficient window at that point, because it's able to be moved. The sides have been brushed down by the friction of opening and closing them through the years and things like that. Contraction or even water damage is what we see a lot of on these as well. Replaced with the new window, these are just pretty general windows, probably not the lowest, but second lowest, maybe medium style windows that I would have purchased from Menards. The real benefit to windows is if you have not a custom size, what they'd call a standard size window, then I can show you some of the prices here that you'd be looking at for decent windows. These are just single hung, meaning you can only move the bottom. Double hung are really nice for cleaning. You know, to me, if you're going to do it and you're going to be living there and enjoying it, then do double hung or spend money to get the nicer windows. But if you're doing it as an upgrade to sell, a lot of people won't really notice the fact that you've done, you know, medium versus the highest, you know, depending on what area they're looking in. But these are all going to be really awesome windows to be able to replace with and save a lot of money. So I think that that's pretty much what I wanted to show you on windows. Just get my picture back here. Big thing, if you do decide to replace your window, this is a pretty good picture to show you guys that on the sides here, this is where the window weights would be. It's very important that if you do decide to replace them yourselves, this area in here is just vacant space. It's not trapped air because it's not like completely sealed, like vacuum sealed, okay, like we would see in the other windows. So that means that this dead space is going to be a big leak as well. So you can replace all the windows but still be hollow here, here, and here, and that's a negative for you. So if you should do this and replace the windows, you'd want to have some sort of spray insulation or stuffed down, rolled insulation down into here to kind of fill up that vacant space. And that's all I really have for you. If you guys have any questions or anything, you can feel free to let me know. And hopefully you've learned a little bit about how you can save some money. And now I'm going to go over how you can do a video capture using PowerPoint. Thanks.